Hey everyone, Mr. Chicken here. Sorry for the videos being a little bit slower recently. There's a massive project I'm working on, so look forward to that towards the end of this month. And speaking of late videos, here's a review of Dune, a film I actually really wanted to talk about, but unfortunately I never got around to it until now. So without further ado, here's my review. Dune, or Dune as us Brits pronounce it, was directed by Denis Villeneuve based on a novel by Frank Herbert and stars a huge cast of actors including Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Zendaya, and many more. And probably the most important thing to say about this film, getting it out of the way, is that this film is only a part 1. They quite literally took half a book and turned it into a film. And knowing that that is what the film intends to be makes a lot of difference. A lot of the main story beats and arcs happen by the end of this film. However, there's so much foreshadowing and build and hinting towards the future that happens in this film that ultimately does not pay off by the end of it. And that's because most likely these things will come to play during part 2. And this is either one thing you could knock against it or have for it. It entirely depends on whether Dune Part 2 sticks the landing. So don't go into this expecting all of the arcs and story beats to be fully resolved by the end of it, because yeah, the foreshadowing will pay off eventually, just not yet. See, this is the first season of a big TV series which has a lot more to come. And this is pretty clear from the fact that the entire first act is almost entirely just set up. Denis Villeneuve's a very patient director. He likes giving you the amount of time to get the right amount of info that's necessary for you to have without them outright spilling all these things out to you. Information's conveyed to us in a pretty good way without it ever feeling too expository. But ultimately I didn't really care about the fact that this was all set up because it was all pretty interesting. I like the characters involved, and most importantly, this world is an interesting world to see. And once this has all been fully established and set up in the first hour or so of the film, as soon as the second act begins, I could feel my jaw literally drop. Some of the story beats in this film are absolutely fantastic and some of the sequences are incredible. The direction of this film is absolutely fantastic, with so much attention to detail and a really good understanding of scale. One of the main things that Villeneuve is able to do is he's able to frame so many of these massive elements in comparison to other objects, using some very dynamic camera movements to indicate the scale of various things we see. Spaceships, planets, sandworms. We're given a clear idea of what these things look like in relation to all of these other things, giving us a pretty good idea of what threat we are under. Another way that all of these things are able to look so convincing is through an incredible integration of CGI. They must have got the same people that did Blade Runner 2049 for this, because once again the VFX are magnificent in this film. The cinematography is really good as well. Lighting and color are used really well to illustrate the scale and the world properly, but it's also still able to contain this sort of minimalist version. It treats a lot of these sci-fi elements like they're normal, which again richens the world out, and it also doesn't waste too much time doing this stuff. There's some sci-fi stuff in here, however we're kind of just told, yeah, deal with it, it doesn't matter that much, and I really appreciate that approach. There's always something going on in every shot. Very little time is ever wasted in this film, and I think it clearly shows to me that Denis Villeneuve clearly understands the source material. Speaking of the source material, I should probably add, I haven't read Dune, and I'm probably not going to read it until part 2 comes out, because I don't really want to get spoiled on what happens in part 2. However, other people who've read the book say this is actually pretty accurate to the book, so good on them, I guess. This has definitely made me want to read the book a lot more, so yeah, credit to this film. If I could use one word to describe the approach to this film, it would be patient. This film is just very good at conveying all of the important information at a good rate to the point where we never get bored. It's just solid when it comes to its storytelling. And like I said, the film is never boring. It's slow, but that's intentional. I like the minimalist approach that Denis Villeneuve has in terms of its storytelling, where it takes up its time setting up the story and its characters and giving the important moments the necessary amounts of time they need. like I said, no time in wasted, and all of the moments that need time are given it, and some of the other elements that don't are really sort of glossed over. This is where, of course, we move to the acting, because I think Timothée Chalamet is really good as Paul Atreides in this movie. Like a lot of the film, he's very muted, he's very minimalistic in his performance. He's able to give us small flashes of what the character is like, however he's also able to dial it down, which is able to give us a good idea of what this character is capable of. There's a lot of subtleties to his performance which I really appreciate, and honestly I can't really see any other young actor in the role. The film really is on Timothée Chalamet's back, and I buy him completely. All of the cockiness, the naivety, the quietness, all of that's coming through. The rest of the cast have spread pretty evenly. They all do really good jobs with what they're given. In particular, I thought that Jason Momoa was a very fun presence. He's really the comic relief of the film, but even then I feel like they dialed him down. But yeah, he was a very endearing personality in there. Humor isn't too prevalent in the film, however when it is used, it's used at the right point, and it is almost used sparingly, almost as a way of sort of just keeping us interested in this. And yeah, there's fun little presences and characters are pretty well established here, without them ever hogging too much screen time. Likewise, I think Rebecca Ferguson does awesome in this film, and some of the other actors, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Sharon Duncan Brewster, they all do notably good jobs in the film. Stellan Skarsgård is fittingly disgusting as the Baron in this film, and the prosthetics and all the makeup used for him and the rest of the Harkonnens are brilliant as well. The production design of this film, the lighting, the effects, they're so well put together, and they're all fantastic on their own. Combine them together and you get a really good vision and a really good presentation for a lot of these huge sequences and these little smaller scenes as well. This is where the final big atmospheric piece of the film comes in, which is Hans Zimmer's score, which adds to the tone of this film because it is absolutely incredible. He has several thematic music types that he uses in terms of various sort of sounds of music represent different areas of the universe here. He's able to give a lot of impact to these big moments and make them really grand and epic in scale. And it's also a really memorable soundtrack that I was listening to soon after finishing the film. What I will say is that Hans Zimmer does play to type a bit, but for this kind of film, his type works. And ultimately, his type is good, so it's really not that much of a problem for me. But now, let's talk about the main and, to be honest, the only notable problem that this film has, and it's a big one. It's like I said, this film is only a part 1. We have no idea how relevant any of what we're seeing is, and we're only going to find out during part 2, which means that however good this film actually is, we basically aren't going to know yet. Hence, I'm going to do something which I don't usually do, which is I'm going to ignore giving this film a review score. It's intentionally half of a story, so I'm going to hold out until after then to give a rating. What I can say is that this film is definitely great. I really like this movie. It's well made, it's well acting, it has a great story, a brilliant universe, great music, all of this stuff. And it has the potential to be incredible. It has potential to be up there with something like Lord of the Rings. I'd really recommend Dune Part 1, but there is the context of Part 2, which essentially needs to finish up a lot of the plot elements here. I think you can watch this film on its own, but it isn't nearly as satisfying knowing that the next chapter of the story is around the corner. A good example of that is Zendaya, who is, to be honest, barely in the film. She actually appears more in these dream sequences than she does not in them, if that makes sense. And obviously that's because she's going to have an extended role in Dune Part 2. A lot is riding on that second Dune film. I really like this first installment, but I feel like both its quality and the quality of the second film are both relying on the second. However, what I can say is I really recommend Dune Part 1. I think it's great. I'm looking forward to Part 2, and yeah, I hope it comes out soon. Damn it. But what did you lot think of Dune down below? Do you think it's all relying on Part 2, or do you think I'm an idiot for thinking that this film really heavily relies on its sequel? Again, let me know down in those comments there, because this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Chicken Movies. And with that said, thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.